So since I heard the topic was about risk in investing, and in particular for small investors, I want to use my own website as a way to facilitate that conversation. Folio, the Folio group of companies of which Via Folio is just a part, is all about diversification and risk management, particularly focused on investors. And so our bent in the crowdfunding space is how to make the bite sizes smaller, how to make companies not worried about having lots and lots of shareholders, how to work with the legislators and the regulators to allow funds to have more investors, all of which are enabling smaller bite sizes. Smaller bite sizes means you can buy more of many different things, have a diversified portfolio, and not just a diversified portfolio of non-publicly traded securities, but a diversified portfolio that includes a small portion of non-publicly traded securities, and within that portion, lots of non-publicly traded securities. And so I would refer back to some of the previous conversations of we want to support the Fixed Crowdfunding Act from Congressman McHenry and other things like that, because it allows for a company to raise a little bit more money and to do so with, particularly in the case of funds, with more investors for smaller bite sizes. Talk about risk for companies. And I want to pull some other people in on this. We seem to have covered the risk of who's going to process the transaction. We seem to have covered the risk on who's going to keep the books and records. We seem to have covered some of the risk of, get the right lawyer to get the right filings. I don't think we've covered the risk yet of how to actually get the investors to show up. And I don't know that we really know who the investors are. Is it individual investors, aka a crowd? Is it family offices and high net worth individuals who are just out shopping for interesting investments? Is it institutional investors who view it as their job and this is just a new asset class for them? I don't know, and I'm not even sure I would make a supposition. The answer is probably a little bit of all of them, but like anything, there's going to be a bias towards one group or another. And let me ask somebody who hasn't had a chance to talk a whole lot yet. Rama, where do you think these investors are going to come from for these small to medium-sized enterprises that are trying to raise money?
What my perception, these investors comes not looking for ROI. They believe in certain cause. They believe in the technology. They believe in the product, how that is going to change the world. And they passionately invest in those companies. So you need to have a different kind of an audience altogether to attract for your product, at least. That's my perception.
And for those passionate, engaged people, are those individual high net worth people who are writing big checks? Is that a crowd of smaller investors, or are you trying to engage the passionate fund manager?
I'm hoping that accredited investor who understand the technology and the passion behind the product.
Okay.
But the crowdfunding also allows those who are not sophisticated accredited investor participate in a small amount to fund the cost.
Okay.
If we can globally expose the platform somewhere on how one does it, there are lots of individuals throughout the world who believe certain causes, certain impact, certain technology, certain product.
So this gets to the question that was brought up earlier of is it education, is it awareness, is it game playing, but how do you draw people into something that they weren't already looking at and use some of their
what
mind
I
share?
heard is that you need to promote the product. I don't know how to do it. One gentleman was saying it's not a brand, it's an action that one needs to take. I don't know what is the methodology for that.
Okay.
Previously with the broker, dealer, or investment bankers, they had a certain investors already who were interested in your product, in your company, in your technology. You're exposing to an audience that doesn't know you. But so I don't know what the methodology was the easy way to promote your technology and the platform.
Okay, I see the guy sitting next to you nodding his head a lot, so he wants to say something. Richard Swart, what do you think about this topic? Where are the investors going to come from? What's their profile?
Yeah, well, it's a long question.
Oh, it's a short question. It's a long answer.
Okay, so one is for accredited investors. They are looking for sectors that they already have familiarity and they're not taking a leap of faith. And it seems like they are behaving pretty much like any other potential angel investor. There's no real behavioral difference between crowdfunding angels and normal angels. They're actually going to look for a lot of data. the reason they're going to look at you is typically syndication, the same way that they're in an angel network or they got a friend Bill who says you should take a look at this company. There are very few that are just out randomly looking for deals, with a couple of exceptions. You've got the angel syndicates, and then our crowd has a ridiculous amount of people that are shopping for deals on that particular platform, because they've very successfully syndicated, curated, I should say, a community of very active investors that want in on the deals.
Our crowd has done an amazing job putting together offerings and investors.
And the investors are just, sometimes they have, their problem is they have more investor demand than they can possibly satisfy. And they sometimes close rounds in hours, not days or weeks. So I don't know the magic sauce they have. I know it's rigorous due diligence and screening, but very hard to get on their platform.
Yep. So you gave an answer that was pretty individual investor focused.
Right.
Does anybody here think that this beta consumer sort of peer-to-peer thing that went from individuals lending money to other individuals, which actually became companies lending money to individuals, will happen more in this equity space where, sure, right now it's individual investors funding individual companies, but do the funds, do the small institutions come in and take over at some point once it's been proven out? Or is this really about passion investing, and it will always be about passion investing, and therefore it will always be individual investors? Question, not a statement.
I think one of the concern I have, the liquidity of the share that you issue is so little. So it's very hard for any sophisticated investor or institutional to come into the place. I mean, 4,000 shares traded, I mean, it's a joke. So that's how do you make the transformation from this equity offering to the crowd to a marketplace like an IPO and other things that create the liquidity that brings the market maker in the stock. Then you begin to see the product and the technology or the company, more institutional and more sophisticated investor may get involved or get comfortable that, okay, if I don't like it, I can cash out.
So let me put a few words in your mouth. I gave a speech a couple years ago in a building just down the street that initial issuance volume was never going to materialize if there wasn't secondary liquidity. So far we haven't seen initial issuance volume, and there isn't secondary liquidity. But even if we take it further and say a company like Folio and a company like ComputerShare is processing secondary transactions, we can in fact move money between accounts, we can in fact move shares between people. We maybe even can, within the reasonable future, have websites where people can post, I want to sell or I want to buy, and engage in some price discovery. That's still not the same as a magic word you said of market maker. And I think it's a little bit of a dated word, but if you apply the concept of somebody who's willing to step into the middle, pick things up when nobody else is around, hold on to them for a little while until other people show up, that's an interesting concept that I've heard sort of banter, but nothing serious of people saying, I want to do a business where I step in the middle.
I've heard 5 or 6 people say they intend to do that. I've never seen anybody.
Nobody's potted it up yet.
No one's actually done it.
Well, I want to partner with them. I want to be a platform that helps them
point
out.
of view on some
Okay,
of that.
good.
Bring it in, Joan.
I come out of, my background originally is real estate investment banking, venture capital. And I guess I think that when you invest in seed stage, really early stage, let's call them speculative investments, and they are illiquid, that you're looking to do that because those investments look like they're going to pay you a premium return in exchange for the lack of liquidity. To me, that's a sort of a given in order to, as a characteristic for one of those types of investments. It has to at least have the promise of that to attract capital.
I love that. Let me counter, you and Ram are saying a little bit different things.
Yes.
Let me try and dive right in the middle of that. If liquidity means I get to sell what I bought whenever I want at whatever great premium price I want, that's very different than liquidity meaning my life situation has changed, things took longer for this company to materialize, I kind of need the money back, don't need a premium, in fact I might even be taking a little bit of a loss, but I'm getting at least 50% of what I put in. Those are two very different definitions of liquidity. Rama, which one are you from?
The liquidity, I mean, it gives the individual a freedom to cash out when and if he wants on his terms.
On his terms. Well, none of us get that. I'd love to sell IBM at $5,000, but nobody's going to pay me for
No,
it. So
yeah.
what do you mean, really?
But it trades, right? It trades every day.
Sell anytime.
So there are people are buying and there are people are trying to
So I might not get a premium, but at least
It's
I
not
could
a
let
premium,
go.
it is a cash out at
Cash
the
out. Okay.
market price, that there is a need for my kids' education.
Right.
All right.
I'm sick. I want
Tuition.
this.
I'm with you. So Joan, same answer or different answer?
Different answer
Okay.
for me. Because to me, no one should ever be putting money into an illiquid investment that they need next month or next quarter or next
Yeah,
year.
but it's been 10 years. I want out.
Okay, that's a whole different thing. And I guess I look at that and I think, all right, you put your money into the illiquid investment, there's usually a time horizon, no guarantee. 'Cause I've seen
Especially on
ones-
this equity stuff.
Yep, I've seen ones that didn't come true and I've seen ones that did, and sometimes sooner. But to me, that lack of liquidity is what should create some premium returns. So if you look at what family offices and VCs and angels have been doing for a long time, they're getting in early in the timeline, and that's where you're getting that 40% return. You're not getting it because it trades on the New York Stock Exchange.
I'm with
there's
you.
That's all been priced out.
I'm
But
with you.
there's an exit event there, right?
Hmm?
If VC invest in your company,
Yeah,
he has an exit strategy.
yes.
That IPO he will get. He had an illiquid instrument. They or he or she doesn't know what the exit strategy is, how long is going to get trapped in. You know,
Maybe, no one ever knows for sure.
and also,
even the
but
VC.
here, more you
a lot
have
of them with
this
backward.
John Smith kind of a little investor in your equity funding, the VC or the big investment banker doesn't want to go close to it because it's a headache. I mean, thousands of these investors. They are.
Yeah, I'll
they
take
don't
that
know
off the table. Let's say it's one street name holder for thousands of investors and a couple of more founder shares on the cap table. I'm gonna put out that fear of many investors is a myth.
Really?
Like people will say it,
Yeah.
but does it really actually stop a hot company from getting
Yeah.
the next round of investment? I doubt it.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it dictates how they might get it.
How they might get. Now, anybody disagree? All right. Am I at 15 minutes yet? Probably not. You tell me.
You're good.
Okay, last category of risk, platform risk. So Folio is a clearing broker. We think we do a cool job at that. Why do we think it's cool to have private securities held at clearing broker? Because nobody's else is doing it.
Yes.
And we want to support that. We want that to grow. But what are other ways to mitigate risk in doing say a direct public offering? It's to use some platform. So we've got some great folks here from Fund America. That is a platform, an escrow-based closing with transfer agent, book entry recordation. For certain kinds of offerings, I can't imagine a better solution, and it's way better than the issuer trying to do it themselves, holding on to checks and things like that.